So this same reporter asked me whether or not my comment was the same feelings of President Bush and Jeb Bush. And I said to him, I don't believe that they are. And I said, if they're not, I said, this is my opinion. This is my opinion. So I cannot speak for them. But of course, he says, well, I'm going to find out how they feel about this issue. So he sent a letter to the Associated Press. And the Associated Press took it, and they sent it around the world. And the heading of the letter, our announcement was this: Bush ally slams Islam. And as a result of that, by the time I could make it back to my office here, I received a call from Jeb Bush's office. It was his senior advisor on the phone. She asked me if I said that on the air, and I said, yes, I did. She said, well, now that you have said that, she says that you can no longer be on the Judicial Nominating Commission. She said, Jeb Bush wants you off of the Judicial Nominating Commission right now. So she says, I want you to write a letter and send it forth right now. Fax it to us. And I said to her that I will do no such thing. So eventually, though, within the upcoming days, I did, because of the pressure coming from Jeb Bush's office.
How interesting. Interesting also is the media made a fuss over your sincere comment of concern, but you do not preach violence. You don't promote the killing of Christians or anyone, whereas right here in this country and in Europe there are representatives of the Islamic faith who are preaching hatred, yet the same media people don't seem to make a great fuss of that. How do you explain that, sir?
Well, I think that it falls in line with political correctness. They want to be politically correct. Basically, they have no problem criticizing us. You know, if we say something and we speak truth, then they're going to criticize us. You know, and as you said, the Islamic community could say anything they want to say about America, about Israel. It's okay, as long as we Americans don't say it. I think that's sad.
Oh, it's more than sad, sir. I believe it is ultimate hypocrisy, and it is detestable. I'd like to ask you a little bit more about your concerns for what Islam is doing worldwide. And do you believe actually that it's all about Israel, or is it about a bigger agenda? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a bigger agenda, because we have to look at the root of Islam. We have to look at why was Islam created in the first place by Muhammad. Muhammad and his followers, it's just not really about Israel. Israel plays this real important role there, but I think it's about the rest of the world that has embraced Christianity. Islam has an agenda, of course you know, and the agenda is to advance itself throughout the world. And the rest of the world, they simply back up because they want to be politically correct. That is their greatest weapon against us. As long as we remain politically correct and refuse to call Islam what it is, Islam will continue to grow in this country and throughout the world. What's going to stop its growth is for people like my good friend, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and the rest of them, Barack Obama, and all of them, were to stop getting on television and telling people what a beautiful religion Islam is. See, that serves to grow the religion. Why? Because everyone wants to belong to a good, beautiful, peaceful religion. It is not that. They're saying these things for political reasons. In other words, our politicians are selling out our country and selling out Israel simply because they want to win an office.
Personal interests. And
Yes.
they omit to mention the abuse of women that Islam promotes and the mutilation of little girls, babies, even in this day in England and elsewhere. But tell us a little bit more about your view on how Sharia law, which they're trying to slowly bring into England and European countries, and they hope to do the same eventually in the United States. Tell us a little bit more about how you see that as a threat to our Western civilization.
Well, as Islam rises, and it is rising, it is a threat. If Islam continue to rise in London, in America, throughout this country, throughout this world, it will continue to be a problem. It will be a problem even to the extent that one day our grandchildren will live under the grips of Sharia law. It's coming our way. Islam has a plan, a 20-year plan to take over America from within, and they're doing it. If they rise to be 2-3% of the population in this country, we will begin to see and feel the influence of Islam like we have never felt it before. And especially as they move to 5%, 8%, 10%. Oh my Lord, it's over.
So I'd like to ask you a question specifically about your neighborhood, the community here. There is this big 29,000 square foot mosque being built nearby in this neighborhood. I'd like to ask you how that's going to impact this community, in your opinion, what the significance is. And of course, I'd like to have time to talk to you about the strange desire by some people to build a mosque just near Ground Zero in New York, which I think is totally unacceptable. But back to this community, what are your thoughts on the local mosque?
I think the building of this particular mosque here, which is a 29,000 square foot mosque in this neighborhood is a predominantly black neighborhood. There aren't any Muslims living in this neighborhood. Now, the only reason they want to build a mosque here of that size is to recruit young blacks, young Hispanics who are vulnerable to the Islamic cult into their mosque. See, this mosque already exists over town, across town. It's already there, but it's a little building and they have only about 35 people there in the building. Now, they want to build over here for the primary purpose of recruiting.
Sir, I'd like to ask you a question with regards to Israel. Do you believe that a two-state solution would be the way to achieve peace in the Middle East? Israel does have peace with Egypt, so a lukewarm peace, and with Jordan. Do you believe that a two-state solution would actually improve the matters there?
I do not, honestly, sincerely. The fight has continued for thousands of years. There is this deep-seated hatred. They would never live side by side in peace, the Palestinians and Israel and the Jewish people there. It would never happen. You know, it's a theory that we could wish for. We could just pray and say, oh boy, you know, it's gotta happen. It's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. And of course, we see this administration here, the Barack Obama administration, playing both sides of the coin.
Do you believe that if Israel gives more land for peace as they return to Gaza, even though actually Gaza and the West Bank, in many people's view, is part of Israel historically and from every point of view, one can prove that. But anyway, Israel gave Gaza to the Palestinians and greenhouses that could produce millions of dollars a year in produce, and immediately the next day they smashed it all. Do you believe that if Israel gives more territory, more concessions to the Arab neighbors, that this will perhaps finally lead to peace?
No, it will not lead to peace. Israel can give away all of its land. It will never lead to peace. Never. never. It's not about Israel's land. That's not what they want. What the Palestinians want is what the Muslims want overall in that particular region. And that is to run Israel into the ocean.
Well, God willing, Israel will survive and good things will come to be. And I'd like to ask you, before we end our interview, tell us a little bit about the teachings of your church and your aspirations. You've done remarkable things in 25 years, and you've served your country wonderfully, as more people should. And I'd like just to ask you how you see the future, what your plans are with your church and the community.
Well, our teaching is different. Our teaching in our church is quite different from perhaps any other church you will see around, in that we teach and preach on the cultural issues. We teach and preach basically on the mandates. Of course, we teach and preach on God's righteousness, the family. We also teach and preach on the war on terror. We teach and preach about the dangers of Islam and Islamic fascism here. So that puts the church into a different category. We also preach and teach the issues that the politicians are dealing with every day. In other words, we don't tell our people who to vote for, but we tell them what to vote for. And that is, we tell them to vote for the issues that are dear to God.
So this has been really very interesting, a great pleasure to have you on the show. And we hear music in the background. We are at the church. And I'd like to thank you very, very much again for being with us on the show. We have to do this again sometime in the near future. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'll be right back. This brings us to the end of our special show for today from On Location in Pompano Beach, Florida. I'm Richard Peretz. Thank you for being with us.